specializes on all types of budgets. Okay? So let's go ahead and introduce our panel. We'll start over here on the left-hand side. Give us a little bit of who you are, and then that way we can continue with our panel here, Ms. Amaris.
Hi, everyone. My name is Amaris Espinoza. I'm the current Vice President of the Digital Media Production Association. I'm the undergraduate lab assistant, and I'm currently a junior.
They can't hear. Is there a way to enhance the mics?
I'll project more.
Yeah, we'll have to scream.
I have a theater background.
We'll just louder.
But yeah, to recap, Amaris Espinoza, Vice President of the Digital Media Production Association, current undergraduate lab assistant. I'm right here in this next room if you guys ever need me. And I'm a junior here at UTEP.
Beautiful.
I hear a song somewhere.
Music. Yeah, it's the background. It's music.
Yeah, but then we have Valeria over here, please.
Hi, everyone. My name is Valeria Contreras. I'm an adjunct instructor here at UTEP in the Department of Communication, and I'm a producer, writer, and director.
I'm Elizabeth Avellán, and I'm here to this is my third time at the El Paso Film Festival. It has been a wonderful experience every time I've come, and we are here. I want to introduce really quick the filmmaker behind American Sons, Andrew Gonzalez. He's sitting in the audience. He just arrived. And it is an amazing documentary that he and Laura Varela made, and invited me to come help them be a part of it, to get it to festivals. And we have another wonderful producer that has been helping us also, Fernando Cano, who is also Latinos. We're Latinos, and from all over Texas. And I'm from Venezuela originally, but I've been in Texas 50 years. I think that qualifies me as a Texan. And I, it's on Saturday morning at 10:30 a.m., first come, first serve. I encourage you guys to come see it because it's a really incredible story about veterans that is profound and also inspiring to see how people go through so much and yet can look for a better way to heal themselves together. And so it's an incredible, it's at the Mexican American Center at 10:30 in the morning, 10:30 a.m. Yes, correct. And so I would love to see some of your faces there, because let's fill up that place. So I'm very pleased to be here with students. I love speaking to filmmakers and young people because you're the future. I'm not, I'm already on the other side. You guys are the future. But I have done a lot through my career as I worked from not even being in film myself. I didn't study film. I studied art, much like, I think it's liberal arts here. You guys don't have a film school. I did not go to a film school. I took film classes. I took theater. I worked in theater. I did theater classes, things like that, but I did not. And it was always behind the scenes. I always knew as a producer, I didn't really want anything else. If ever I was going to be something, I was going to be a producer. But I also had a lot of other career situations before that. So, and I just want to make sure that all of you feel that there's a place for you in the film business if your heart desires it. And there are many jobs in this situation, in this that is happening everywhere, not only in film, but in digital media, in gaming, in there's so many ways that now social media that you can use your talents and begin somewhere to start doing what your heart desires. Begin with that. So let's start. I have a list of questions, so I want to make sure these are important questions. I want to give them the platform to ask them.
Well, thank you again for joining us. It really means a lot to all of our students, to the university, and to El Paso. So I just want to say thank you and welcome. We're so excited to learn from you today, so really appreciate it. We'll Amaris and I can tag team the questions, and I guess I'll just start by asking you more. Here in El Paso, we're interested in elevating border stories a lot of the times, and so one of our questions is, how can filmmakers share authentic stories from our region while still reaching wider audiences? We would love your thoughts.
Well, it doesn't. You don't have to be in a border to do a story about the border. Plenty of people have done it. You are in a situation that you are in the border, and every day, many things happen. And one of the reasons I did Deadland, it wasn't because it was a border story. It was because it was an amazing script. So if you don't have an incredible, really good script to go from as a producer, you don't have anything. So for me, it was really important, and also the team, to execute a really great story. I don't know if any of you have seen it. It's on Prime, but and that's one of the films I brought here a couple of years ago, and the filmmakers that did it. So I am a believer in that. It doesn't matter what story you are telling. Your script has to be good, even if it's just, like a series of things that you're writing down, you still have to flesh it out, and there are 3 movies that are made in the process, okay? You have the script, which is a version of that movie. You have the movie that you're shooting, the filming part of it, right? And then the movie that actually gets out there is the edited version, which can be very different than the script. But if you have a good script and a good place to go from, then you're going to be shooting some things that are hopefully very good, that then you can edit at the end and make it what your vision and what the vision of the team, because it is a team effort. But you do have a director, and a lot of times there's a writer-director in the cases of smaller films. So I encourage all of you to think of it in that manner. So that leads me to the first thing I'm going to tell you, and that is, learn how to edit. Number 1.
Study.
Okay? Because there's nothing more frustrating. I'm going through that still with a movie, and nothing more frustrating for a filmmaker that's trying to get their point across. And that's one of the reasons why American Sons is so good. Andrew is the writer and the co-writer, the director, and a lot of the camera work, and the editor of this film that brought it to life and knew what it needed, that he, can punch up certain things. He's telling the final version of our film, of American Sons, because he is an amazing editor and can bring the story to life. He had wonderful also, Ann Lewis is a professor at UT of editing, and she was wonderful to come give us her expertise. But ultimately, that's a very important piece of the action. And nowadays, editing softwares are inexpensive. You have equipment here. You have equipment in anywhere, and even in your computer, So learn how to do CapCut in your phone. Okay, guys? Yeah. And I encourage you, because I will tell you why. The best thing that Robert Rodriguez was, this is what I was impressed most by when we were together and when I saw his first film, was the editing. Because you can shoot a lot of things, but if you don't have a good edit of it, you're not conveying what your vision is, right? And I have seen it over and over where a filmmaker is trying. Imagine this, okay, so it's words. We convey something to somebody else. And I'm not telling you to be the editor necessarily, but you need to be able to get on that machine and say, let me show you what I'm saying, if the editor is not getting what you're telling them, because you're telling them words to explain something that is creative. It's in your head, and that person's experience is different than yours. So your words may not be getting across at all to that person. And it's not that they're doing a bad job. It's just that their experience is different from words that you're saying. So think of it in that manner. Whereas if you can jump in and say, let me show you the pace, let me show you what I'm thinking about, or at least kind of cut something together and say, this is how I want it, then you have a way better chance of getting your vision across. Okay, guys? So and Robert Rodriguez always said, what I'm best at is editing, because that's what he really sharpened. But I also want to have cool stuff to edit, so that's why I shoot them. And then to have cool stuff to edit, I write them, and that's probably the thing that I need to work on the most, my writing, because it's all in my head. So, and that is the truth. And the reason why I even signed on to do Deadland with Lance Larson is because he's a great writer. The script was incredible. Third page in, I was in, and I'm like, okay, sign me up. And and he's an editor for a living, okay? So, and the camera person, the DP, is his best friend who co-wrote the thing with him, is an incredible DP. And we went out there and we did not work more than 12 hours every day. And I knew that Lance knew he had gotten it, what he was going to edit. So we walked away. We never reshot anything. We never had to, because I knew that he had that ability and that he was going to be able to do it. And it was incredible to watch how he honed that in and even went back in. He just kept going back into it, which is what Andrew Gonzalez has done with American Sons. We have a way better movie than we did, last year when we turned it into South by, and still we're waiting to hear, and it's just gotten better and richer. And he went back in because we had, PBS gave us the funding, so we have to have a 50-something minute version, 56-minute version. So the movie we shot at South by was a 59-minute version, and we wanted to expand it because the movie people asked a lot of questions. And I'm telling you all this because I hope you guys come and see it, because the 72-minute version answers those questions that the audience had, because we had to have a 50-something minute version. And he went back in and with amazing cutting abilities turned it into this incredible piece of work that is now qualified for awards. So because we have a piece of really important filmmaking that is going to help people. That's the thing about that documentary, is that it actually will help a lot of veterans, a lot of people that have family that are veterans. And I learned so much from the process myself. So that is what I think about border stories. Stories are everywhere. Every day. I mean, if I could tell you the story just happened to me this morning at the airport. It's incredible. It'd be an amazing short, Wow, amazing. So every day. And I got to be a part of it, and I got to be a blessing for a wonderful lady that, because she was a little lost. She started out with her, that she couldn't find her phone. She thought she left it. And her son's a veteran. One of them's a veteran. The other one it's in the Army in Killeen. So it just was like, wow, this is a movie right here, And how many people we touched along the way, she and I, the journey this morning at 3:30 a.m. So pretty amazing, and I just go, stories are everywhere all the time. So that's my pitch to all of you. No matter what you write it well and thorough. Get others to help you see it, and it's a team effort. So, do cooperate with others.
Do we have any editors in this room? You want to show some hands?
Editors. Any editors in the room? Oh, good.
I sure hope you're all taking notes right now. I guess I kind of wanted to pin the conversation back a little more to El Paso, because geographically we are very unique, I'd say. And then with the new Paul Thomas Anderson movie, that is our border story. While it's not explicitly name dropped, it's at least El Paso. It's still us on the screen. And so I wanted to know what makes a border story stand out. If you don't have the name of Paul Thomas Anderson, how do we here in this room make those stories happen and make those stories interesting?
Well, you live them every day. You hear them every day. You've heard past stories, incredible stories. And I mean, the only thing is that if you're just narrowing it, that's why watch Deadland also, because it's more than a border story. It's supernatural. It has a lot of things that make the story great, and it happening in the Border Patrol world. And it came from a seed from a Border Patrol guy that was interviewed by The Guardian. And that's how Lance, I kept telling him, we need a small story to tell so that then you can, do your bigger films, because we have scripts that are bigger, And so stories are, they don't, even if they're not border stories, if they happen in the border, they're in a way a border story, right? So it doesn't, I mean, I think that I haven't seen Paul Thomas Anderson's film yet. I'm going to, but don't think of it as we can only make border stories. But you're in the border. You can't help that. You know, Robert was in Ciudad Acuña. That's why he made that movie. We made 2 movies in Ciudad Acuña. One was El Mariachi, which we had no money for. And then we came back with Desperado, not because we needed to shoot in Ciudad Acuña, but because we had a budget. And we wanted to pay those people that had given us the leg up to make El Mariachi and to get us where we got. So, and those are border movies of sorts, but they happen on the other side of the border. And that's a whole different world. I mean, he never crosses to the United States, so it's not even about here, you know? So stories are always happening, guys. Always. You can place them anywhere. Don't think, because I live in a border, I have to make a border story. But make it about what you know. Make it about what you're living every day, because that adds the richness to it. How do you make them where it's a movie that gets more traction? That's where the magic needs to happen from you, because you can't be like, I want to make a border movies. You know, that's not, you know, there's 1,000 movies. I love every kind of movie. I'm not a big horror movie fan, but sorry, I make them. I don't go watch them. And sorry, but you know, but I love movies. I love movies, and a love story, no matter where it happens, has its own rules and its own things and its own differences, and in the border, it's really, really special. I did a border movie, Brownsville, but we, you know, it played into it, but it didn't. You know, it's more of a story about a woman in a soup kitchen, and this, you know, famous guy shows up in town because he needs higher ratings, you know, and he figured going down there, his producer convinces him. So it's a border movie and not a border movie. It's a romantic comedy. So, and there are plenty of those too. So I just want to make sure that you guys don't feel that that's what you have to make because you live here. You can make many things. I mean, Paul Thomas Anderson could have made it about the Canadian border, and it would have been a border, right? So, but I encourage you to make more than just border stories, you know, because otherwise but you have this canvas, this desert, this, you know, beauty. You have the river. You have, you know, New Mexico across the way. So it is important to open your mind to do the movies. But it can be like, you know, because when Lance sent me the script, he said, it's a border movie. And I was like, oh, I was going to tell you about the guy that the seed of the story is from. The guy's parents had crossed the border way back when he was, you know, before he was, you know, he was born here in the United States. So when they were young, they crossed. They're now American citizens and all that stuff. But he chose to go into Border Patrol because he felt like he could be of service there. And those are the best jobs on the border too. You know, you get, you know, federal, you know, money, and you get federal retirement and all of those things. So, but what the guy said in the interview is that when he did his job, when he put his uniform on, he had his badge in one hand and his heart in the other because of his experience with his parents. And that's somebody you want to write about, you know? So that's what Deadland has about it. It has that heart from that Border Patrol and the Border Patrol people that are in it as actors. So hope that answers that.
That did. Thank you so much.
Well,
thank you. So you've touched a lot of like nuance in character, story, and also you were talking about budget earlier. So I want to turn the question to producing spaces. And if you can tell us, what are the first practical steps a producer should take to turn an idea into something real and tangible and a project that's out in the world?
You know, as you're starting, I don't know if you guys know much about me, my origin story in a way. I'm from Venezuela. I was 13 when I moved to the United States, didn't know English. From a family of 7 kids, I was number 2 of 7 kids. And, you know, it was a love of mine. Film was a love of mine. But I would have never gone to Hollywood not because I was afraid. I just had too many other interests and ways to make money working. I like to work. And so I ended up at Baylor. I went to Rice University in Houston at 16, and that's how I started studying architecture, because that's what my father wanted me to do. And I knew I wasn't an architect. I didn't really want to be an architect. So, the way that universe, whatever, the creator that you have in your life, whatever that is, the creator force in your life, guides you to the things, because you're following your talents. If you're following those talents that were given to you, that make you really, really unique, like literally like a snowflake. I mean, that's how unique is the way you put them together as your experiences and all that stuff. Then things begin to happen that start guiding you. I mean, I love what Steve Jobs said about that when he said, that looking back, he sees where the dots all connected. But forward, he couldn't see them, but that gives him the knowledge that keep doing it the way he's doing it, and they will connect. So the same thing for you guys, right? So to me, I was there for freshman week. I wasn't even living on campus. And literally, I was like sitting like that with a bunch of kids from my dorm, the college, they call them. And this senior that was part of freshman week said, "Hugh, come with me." She chose me out of a lineup. I don't know why. And I thought she wanted me to help her with something, to carry something. And we started walking, and I was like, "Where are we going?" And she goes, "Oh, I'm part of the Rice Players," which is the theater group at Rice. And he goes, "And we need some people to work behind the scenes, and I think you'd be great." Something that I dreamed of all my life. But having come from the United States, from another country to the United States, not knowing the language, really, how do you get in theater? And when you are trying just to every day, and I didn't have time after school because I was cooking for my whole family. We didn't have anybody to cook. I had a sister that cleaned the whole house. We did all those things, so I couldn't. But you know what? The universe, God, my creator, knew what I loved and that I would enjoy that. And I was like, sure. So I got extremely involved and realized that in architecture, maybe I could use it to do sets. Well, the architecture school didn't think that was a good idea. But, nowadays, a lot of architects are the ones designing sets for movies, for theater, and all that stuff. And I actually had the benefit at UT to get the architecture department when we did the first UT Film Institute movie, and we got the music department to get engaged in doing the composing. And we got, all of those things because I see different how a movie is put together, and it's all of those departments together, coming together, the art department, the fine arts department, bringing costumes and design, with the student, the set decorating, all that stuff. So I got to do that. And then all of a sudden, Rice University wants me to come, talk to their students. And I'm like, oh, okay. I give my money to UT because you guys were not nice to me when I wanted to do that, and I'll go. Rice is a great place, but, I just feel like I've dedicated myself to really work with the students at the UT system, because that is where Robert Rodriguez and I met at the Executive Vice President Provost office. I was working there, and he came to be a file clerk. He was 20 years old. He had to have a job because he lost his scholarships. He was not in film school, and yet he showed me one of his little films that he had done. He had done 20 short films that he had edited. You've heard the story before. And I saw one of them, and I knew that because I'd worked in theater, I watched movies, I read incessantly about movies and filmmakers, and knew about Oscars, knew about festivals, knew about all that stuff. Don't ask me why I did. Encyclopedic knowledge of things like that. But when we met, we immediately merged, and together we began from the very beginning. We met in 1988. Mariachi was filmed. We were married a year and a half by the time Mariachi was filmed. And I was the one that had the job that could keep him not only in school, but with no college loans. Not because I was making so much money, but because I'm really good at saving money. And that's another thing I want to address with you guys, and we will in a minute. But that's how it all started, And I made sure that he could take his classes and help him with the ones that he was never going to pass to get his grades up. And also I knew that he could go, if he turned in one of his short films, that we already had on a shelf, to a festival that the students were turning their films, I knew he was going to win, because I knew I'd seen the student films. I've always been interested in that space. I go to the student film, even though I wasn't part of that, at UT, because I was working there. And I knew that his film would win. So he did. So guess what happened? He got into the film school because he beat all the students that had put their film in there. And so that's what ends up happening. If you really have honed your skills as a young person already, you don't have to wait to go to school to do a movie, right? I mean, many of you are making them even when you were in high school, even probably before then nowadays. But, you know, writers write, filmmakers make films, and just like musicians make music, you need a pencil and a pad. You don't even need I need a computer to write my script. No, you don't. Quentin Tarantino, to this day, writes his scripts by hand. And I know a couple of other writers that by hand in a yellow pad, you know, and that's how he writes his movies. Somebody else types them for him, but that's how he writes it. So don't tell me, I need a computer for this, I need that. No, you don't. You don't. Maybe to have the script, you know, transcribed so that you can give it to actors and things like that, but not when you're writing. No, come up with those ideas, even if you don't have a computer. Nowadays, everybody got a computer, but pretty much, or access to one. But back then we didn't, you know. So that's the biggest thing is like, get yourself and your talents out there, and then as a community, because he would engage his little siblings. He was doing movies with Carlos Gallardo, the guy that he did a mariachi with, when they were in high school. So he was already doing movies and using that town. It was almost like workshopping mariachi, basically, without knowing it, right? So he was already doing all that. What I brought into it was, you know, sugar mama, poorest sugar mama you could have, but also the knowledge of like festivals and things like that, and knowing what was happening at the film school that he couldn't get into, so that he could get into it and then go make his first short, which was Bedhead. And that's where mariachi, the idea came in. $800, that's how much Bedhead cost. $800, okay, that's 8 minutes. $8,000, 80 minutes. I could make a movie for $8,000. And they ended up making it for $7,000 because they spent less. So, but that's how things happen. You know, you get where you can make that happen, and you have people that believe in you. He had Carlos's mom who made sure that in her house they fed them, you know, and they made the beds for them and washed their clothes, or, you know, anything. You know, anything is support, but also make sure you give thanks to those people, and they were part of the team. If it was just, you know, the movie doesn't happen by itself totally. Yeah, there may be very few people when you're making it, but it doesn't happen by itself, you know. And I have an associate producer credit because I was paying the bills, and I was helping him with anything and everything he needed. So, and giving him advice, because I did go to take classes that were film classes, and I knew things that, you know, to help him from theater. When he did Bedhead, he was like, I need a dummy. I can't do it without this dummy. I can't drag my brother on the ground. And I was like, you know what? Let's go to a Walgreens. Back then, you know, the legs, because in theater you can make anything out of anything and people believe it. So I'm like, we're just gonna make a dummy. I went to Michael's right next door, and I bought a bunch of legs, pantyhoses. I made a dummy for him. Put the clothes on that you have on your brother and cut real quick, you know. And that's what he did, right? So, and he put him on a skateboard and dragged them down so you could kind of sell it, and then you saw the dummy being dragged and so fast that you believe it's him, you know. So anyway, so there was a lot of cooperation, and that's the thing when you have a community like this in town, which you have many, not just in these classes, but many filmmakers that are here in this wonderful town of El Paso that are making films, that are made them for, they have $5, they go make a film. During the pandemic, it was wonderful. Carlos de la Torre is one of my favorite people because we got $5, we can make a movie. What? And they did. And it was wonderful. They have a canvas. They could be out there making movies, and they made one after another one. And now he's written a script that's really amazing that's going to happen in Austin called Wolftown, and Hollywood is coming and knocking. So, and he's having meetings and things like that. And it all happened with $5 movies. So there you go. So who's next?
Thank you. I wanted to shift that to a student perspective. So I know that we talked about we had already mentioned that we're not a film school. We're a liberal arts college with a focus on digital media production. But we're still getting the ball rolling here. I mean, with Digital Media Production Association, we try to make 2 films every semester. We did 2 short films during the summer. But I guess what I want to know is, how do you keep, after that initiative, how do you keep those indie teams organized when resources are limited? I mean, you know, crew gets tired of eating Little Caesars every day, you know, and you can only keep crew there for so long. So,
right. Okay. Yeah, I get it. But by the way, pizza's pretty good. As a friend of mine said, but the food of the gods. And cold pizza is like a different food group. So no, but I understand. By the way, but that's the other thing. Does it really have to be Little Caesars? Does it really have to be? There's plenty of other food that is inexpensive to make. Beans and rice and, tacos and, tamales, whatever. Parents are making that stuff all the time. So you don't have to limit it to Little Caesars. And it takes time to be able to get really, truly making these films. And you guys have been making them. And let me address the liberal arts thing, okay? You guys are the lucky ones. Because let me tell you, a lot of times, getting a film degree, when it's just a film degree, I tell young people all the time, get a minor in something. Just getting a film degree doesn't get you anything necessarily, because you don't have an education that has a basis on literature and things like that unless you go seek it, and you're a reader, and you're a this, or you've been a reader, and you've been a person that seeks other things than just knowing about a camera, So I have hired more. Out of all my assistants, which I've had amazing assistants, I think I've hired 2 film students. The rest have been advertising, economics, English, accounting, just because, and they got a minor in film, maybe, but they wanted to be in film. So you guys are lucky. Use that to your advantage. Make sure that does not take that away. I think it's an asset, to be really honest, guys. Because you need to know, in order to write great stories, psychology is a great degree to have when you're dealing with that many people. I'm so grateful I took so many psychology classes, because it really does help me with my crews, and with my cast, even with the cast. Oh my God, they're like children sometimes. Not all of them, but some. So it's an asset. Don't see it as a drawback. Just do not. It's actually, you have more to say because you know more. You have a wider education. Okay? And that's important for you to grasp that. And so lean into the fact that you have to take all these different classes, including economics, because all of that is going to help you. It's going to make you a whole person that has better stories to tell. That's the way it is, You have a point of view that is wider than the lens of a camera, and you can tell stories in any way, not just film, not just a camera. In that way, you can write them, or you can create them, out of drawings. You can create them. I don't know what all y'all take for a liberal arts degree here, but I had to take a lot of different. My degree was in art, in the arts. It really was, because once I didn't want to do architecture, I had so many art classes that I had taken that I just figured, well, okay, let me get my history of architecture and art and history of art degree, because the fastest way I can get out of this place, because I just want to get on with my life, to be done with school, because I was studying so many things, but I made sure I took philosophy, and I took, psychology, and I took all of these amazing courses that have all come together to be, who I am and what I can bring to a table. And, it's very interesting. I don't even know. I think it was the only class that I could take I had like a slot. And there was a class on linguistics. Who the hell takes a class in linguistics? I did. I was like, well, that's kind of interesting. I speak a couple of languages, and I love languages. I have used that knowledge so often, because when Antonio Banderas could barely speak English in Desperado, guess who was his coach for the movie? Me. When Willem Dafoe needed to be a Spanish speaker for Once Upon a Time in Mexico, guess who got to help him and do all that? The producer, me. That's who was his coach, okay? And Robert, can you work with him, please? I was like, absolutely. And it's all the mechanics of where sound comes from and where your language is placed. So there you go. You never know anything that you take where you end up using it and you're able to be an asset to something more than already being the producer of the movie. So that's my pitch on what I love that question, by the way, Ramon. Thank you. Very good, because I want to encourage you that you are blessed. You get to take all those classes, and you get to do film, and you get to do the things you love, and you get to incorporate all of that.
Thank you. Very wonderful words of wisdom. I loved what you said of point of view wider than the lens of a camera. I think that was just so beautifully put, and just the ability to draw from different backgrounds for experience. And so kind of on that note, and you touched on community engagement and collaborating with other people, I wanted to ask you, in your career, what qualities do you value most when choosing collaborators, and what's some advice you can give to our students as they're working with each other to build community and work together?
That's a great question, because that evolves as you're working, because a lot of times you get what you got, whoever wants to work with you. First of all, I am going to address the thing about collaborating. And this is a pitch I give to all the students. Ileana Sosa is a wonderful filmmaker from El Paso that is a professor at UT now. So I've been going every fall semester and every spring semester to go talk to our students the first couple of weeks, because I want to always encourage them about a few things and give them my experience, strength, and hope, of what you can be and what you can become in life. And one of it is when you work with each other in films, and by the way, you're in different areas. You may be the editor this time. You might be the cameraman. You may be the director. You may be the one that is the first AD. When you are helping each other as collaborators, be rigorously generous with each other. Humility needs to take place in order for art to be created. In order for creation to happen, humility of a team working together. And if that team has members that don't want to really be like that, then that's not people you want to work with. You're not collaborating. If they kind of feel like, well, no, this is too much for me and I'm not really getting the title I want, blah, blah, blah. Be literally help each other make the things happen. And I really think that's why El Paso is so incredibly important, what they've been doing, what these older guys that are older, that were kids like you, that wanted to do this, and they paved the way for you guys. They really have. And, creating podcasts, creating things that happen in this town that are, going, anywhere in the world, and now they're really getting traction on some of their stories, and it's amazing. So not just here, but and they've created relationships with people as they've gone, with their shorts places all over the world. I mean, Kevin Smith didn't come because I want to go to El Paso. Kevin Smith came because some of your older mentor people that are here knew him, met him, and invited him, and Kevin Smith is going to be awesome tonight. Woo! I'm so excited. He's so funny. I love him. But again, he started from nothing. We were in a panel together when he had done Clerks. Robert was in a panel, and it was the funniest thing he said. He goes, well, a couple of years before, I heard this Mexican guy that said that, he just wrote the story around what he had, so that he had no money, he had nothing, so I thought, hey, and Robert didn't even realize he was talking about him, this Mexican guy. It was and I'm sitting in the audience going, I love this guy. And I hadn't even seen Clerks yet. We saw it that night. And basically, write with what you have. That starts out there, So collaborators, what do you have? And don't keep, the Bugs Bunny cartoons and stuff like that from the Looney Tunes, the original ones? Those things that are almost, I want to say they're close to 80 years old at this point, and they are still amazing, right? People watch them. I mean, those will never die. It's like classical music that is great. It'll just keep going. People will begin to receive it and continue it. Why? Those cartoons, if you read a book by Chuck Jones called Chuck Amok, they literally went in that room, those 5 directors, including Charles M. Jones, Chuck Jones, who, Wile E. Coyote, all those huge, the one with the opera with Bugs Bunny, that one, he did so many of those, but it's because the whole team came in the room and gave all their ideas, all of them. They didn't keep one I'm going to keep that one to myself. Everybody had to come in, and that's how Pixar was built also. They gave all the ideas. They helped. But then the other ones, when the other one was doing theirs, they gave all the ideas. They didn't say, I'm going to save that one for me. Because immediately there's something in the universe that ripples, guys, okay? That's what happens, that you're holding back, because I'm going to save that one for my story. But be like that with each other. The collaborators you find, be like that with each other. Make sure you're generous to a fault, but have them be also the people that are generous to a fault when it's your turn, And that's how you figure out where you want to be in this puzzle, That's how it happens. So there's that. Part of the question was also... Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome.
Well, thank you.
I love that. That resonated pretty deeply with me just because I work with a lot of the people in this room, and I hope that as the years go on, I can keep working with them.
And one thing I've learned, because I've gone back to make a lot of small movies, ethics are really, really important. Work ethic is really important, but ethics are just as important. And I'll tell you, you're getting money. See how people spend money. Don't hang out with people that are full of debt. They'll drag your ass down because they're going to be trying to figure out how they're going to pay their bill off of whatever project or whatever. I've discounted working with a lot of people on that basis. And I have a huge one. I believe that there's some projects that are for me. And I really believe that has to be first for me, that if it's something that is my project, so I am very thoughtful. I'm only one person, but there are plenty of other producers that can take projects on. So I'm very, not picky. If it's for me, even if it's a hard ride, I will take it, because some projects, it's a hard ride. It's not a picnic in the park. They're never a picnic in the park. Making movies is the hardest thing you'll ever do besides having children. Okay, guys, sorry, it's true. So make sure, work ethic and ethics go together for me like you wouldn't believe. If that doesn't line up for me, then I don't even pray about it, because that's the first thing I look at, So.
Yes, on the topic of work ethic, I think this is such an important question for a lot of the people in this room. Because as students, we're kind of trying to break into the industry. We're getting our first PA jobs. I wanted to know what small habits or actions get people invited back for future work.
First of all, be on time for a movie, be on time. Just make sure, be there when you're supposed to be there. Be there a little early because you can shoot the breeze and get to know some of your fellow workers. Then you get to, because by the way, if you get a chance to be in a movie, to work in anything that comes into town, and no matter, or if you go somewhere else, get your foot in that door. Take the PA job, take whatever, in whatever department, because that's your in to be with a crew that will see you, even as an intern. By the way, I've had several situations where interns have been moved up to be PAs because they were like the best PA around. So why shouldn't they be getting paid, right? So we've moved up PAs. So this is really important. Get your foot in the door to be able to then see where you belong in this business. Because we all want to be directors. We all want to be, 1% are directors, okay? Now, I'm not saying you're not going to be a director. You could, but there's a lot of other jobs, and learning them is what will get you to be a director someday, because you will appreciate every piece of the process of filmmaking. And maybe it's not director that you want after all. It's very interesting. I've seen people that have found their heaven in accounting, in movies. And there's a lot of money to be made in accounting and movies. You can make careers in accounting and movies. I had an assistant that was mad at me because I told him he would be really good in accounting. He was very mad at me. Man, he had gotten an economics degree. I'm like, yeah, hello. And he went off and got into debt $150,000 because he wanted to go to Columbia, get a master's at Columbia University. And he came back and I was like, and he was like, you were right. And I shouldn't have gone. And I even gave him a scholarship. I didn't want to discourage him. I gave him $5,000 for both semesters that he was going. And but I was like, I know him. He'd been working with me 3 years. And it's not that I thought less of him. I just knew that that's where he was going to be fulfilled. I could feel it in his heart. It was like they become like my kids, my sister, like my kids. We work together hand in hand. It's my private life and my personal life and my work life. And And I'm grateful. He's an amazing accountant, and he makes really good money. So good for him. He paid off his loans probably now because he was able to get in. So get in there and then figure it out and be willing to do the work, whatever the work is that you are assigned, and then go the extra mile. Have a great attitude. I know it gets hot. I know it's hard. Get yourself some compression socks or those soccer socks and run around like nobody else does. Because you know what? Me, the producer, in any production, I walk at least 15,000 steps a day, at least, in any movie. So if I'm running around, if I see you running around, it's like, okay, I see her, or I see him. Another thing, this is another person that I saw that was just a PA starting. It was the lowest PA, and she took the time. And I got to see her because I walked in the kitchen, in the building that we were working in, and she took the time because that was the moment of the job at that moment to take out the cold sodas and put the hot ones to the back, put the cold ones to the front in the fridge. That took the extra effort, right? Nobody told her to do that. She did. Guess what? She ended up works in every movie pretty much that I work on in the departments that she has chosen to go to. So people will see you. You think they're not seeing you? They're watching you. They're watching you. And you being a person willing to, and not with like, well, I guess so, because that, I get it. It's hard sometimes to just like happy, to do it. Yes, of course. Just go in the morning with that attitude of heart. And doors open. Doors magically open because you're open. And you get to meet a lot of amazing people. They'll send you with that actor that needs to be taken to wherever, and you'll get to know that actor, potentially in a very more meaningful way, and it doesn't mean that they're going to do your movie. That doesn't happen like magic. People think it does. It doesn't. But you will enrich your life by knowing all of these people and them coming back and being grateful, for the, wanting to come back to work at Troublemaker, for example. We get that because of the way that our people work and make everything more smooth and, friendly. And we all love each other. We love working with each other, whatever iteration of my crew I have at that moment.
I'm going to interrupt you because we've been having a great time, but I think we should open up for some Q&A now. I think there's people here who want to ask questions, and let's go ahead and get some people involved here.
I did my homework.
Perfect.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Dr. Flores. I'm professor of communication here at UTEP. Thank you so much for taking the time to visit us. It's wonderful. Elizabeth, I have two questions for you. Number one, I would like to know the behind story about the name of your studio because I love it. The Troublemaker. Is that because you're there to break stereotypes? Because before you create the Spy Kid movie, all the stereotypes about the Latino kids were about the poor kid, the dirty kid. And then you come up with this beautiful concept, presenting Latinos as rich people with a lot of opportunities to move forward, with a beautiful, opportunity to collaborate or to contribute to the U.S., society, to the U.S. community, which I love. And then the second question has to do with Dr. Ramírez Berg. I know he's a very good friend of yours. So I want to know if his theory about stereotyping and Latino stereotypes have influenced your work in any way. And also, can you please tell us about the anecdote when he collaborated in your movie as a professor, which is what he does for the living, because every semester at UTEP, he tells the same story to all the students, and that's his favorite story, to share to students. And he is from El Paso. So we try to incorporate a lot of his intellectual work to our students because he's born and raised in El Paso. And then from here, he moved to Austin to attend film school. Thank you.
Thank you. And I will start out the first question. Sorry, I got in love with Charles Ramírez Berg. You mentioned his name, my heart just. What was the first question? I'm sorry, the very first one.
Yes,
so I can address it.
If you can give us a little bit of the backstory about how can you come up with a number of Troublemaker. Yes.
Well, when I met Robert, he had just been the first year at UT. He had a comic strip called Los Hooligans Productions. And Robert has always been kind of a rebel, and we have a son named Rebel for that reason. But, he's always been that guy that wanted to do it his way. And, and he went to a junior seminary. And even though the junior that's where he met Carlos Gallardo. I'm going back to his original story because it has to do with who he is, because I'm the antithesis of a troublemaker. I'm like the goody two-shoes, but it's a good balance, and I love that he's a troublemaker. That's why I married him and had 5 kids with him. What can I tell you? Anyway, very endearing, that troublemaker, that hooligan side of him, because, he basically had done that comic strip and when he was in that, by the way, when he was in that junior seminary, it was across the street from his house in San Antonio, but all the kids had to be boarding students, okay? So Carlos Gallardo was a boarding student from Ciudad Acuña that was there at that school, and that's how they meet. And that's how he ends up going to Ciudad Acuña to do all those movies. But Robert, he lived across the street, and he didn't want to have to sleep over there, but he liked that he could go in his robe to school, across the street, because he would go in his robe to school, by the way, pajamas and a robe. And he just, so he convinced his mother to tell the priest, which was it's true. I mean, there were 10 kids in that house, and his mom needed help, and he was one of the better helpers inside the house. So to convince the priest that she needed him at home, so he could spend the night at home, and he could just go to school every day. But all the other kids, so he was special. He didn't have to be the boarding school kid. So across the street. So anyway, so that's the beginning of a seed of he could kind of I can do this. And he would make really funny movies. He did a horror movie that the priest didn't realize they were making. All these kids are getting killed, and he had filmed all of it. And then he had the priest put on a hoodie and then turn around and say, "Happy Halloween." He was the killer. And it's an amazing short film he did in high school. And the priests were so upset. I mean, can you imagine? He shows the movie at the school, and the priest had no idea. And it's a boarding school at that. Oh, my God. Crazy. So he's very much a rebel. So to me, that's always been a wonderful trait, because he has been able to do things his way, with the support of me and other people in his life, including his mother, his siblings. I mean, we all just he's a great leader. He really is. And always beating it to his own drums, in a lot of ways. And not always a good thing, but most of the time it is. So that's Los Hooligans was the original comic strip name, and we started our company called Los Hooligans Productions. And it was about these little kids, in the comic strip, who were kind of, the main girl is pretty rebellious, Mari Carmen. So when we were doing all of our films, it was under Los Hooligans Production. And along the way, we began to get this reputation because Robert, the truth is, he does write them, direct them. A lot of times he'll be the DP, and he's the editor. And composes part of the music, and he's that guy. He's always been he did that with mariachi. Why wouldn't he do it in the bigger movies? But that's not how Hollywood works, and that's not how unions want you to work. They don't want, so whenever because by the way, they wanted him to not put his name in the credits, like the DGA was very much against him putting writer, director, editor. But he wanted his name in the movie once. He didn't want it 6 times in the movie. That's not what he was looking for. But they were like, no, cannot be done that way. And he would force the hand every movie, trying to see how far he could take them, And then they wouldn't let him. So he would be so upset every time because they would make him break it up. He didn't want his name over and over. But they would force him to do that. So he began to get known as a troublemaker, already, because of he's just a troll. He's just causing trouble all the time. Why does he have to be so difficult? Because, by the way, I'm the one that is trying to make all these things happen for him, and I have to talk to the studio, and I have to talk to the, a lot of times to the DGA, and then I would have to bring him in front of the DGA board, to plead his case or whatever the heck, right? Well, so when we were about to start doing, the Spy Kids movies, we started the studio in 99, And we could not come up with a better name than Troublemaker Studios because we are, make good trouble. Make good trouble. That's exactly what we're supposed to do. John Lewis said it. He said it the best. Make good trouble. Because you know what? You don't have to do exactly how they say you should do it. You're unique, and you should be able to do whatever. And Robert even quit the DGA when he did Sin City because they wouldn't let Frank Miller be a co-director with him. No, it's only siblings. So I would go and come up with all the ones that weren't siblings, that there were two directors in a movie. Well, it's because they started way back in the beginning when they were students. Bullshit. I'd find all the ones that weren't like that. But I'm the one that does all the research and goes, no, that's not true. They're giving me reasons that, no, well, he's just a graphic artist. He's not a director. And let me tell you, Sin City couldn't have happened if that man that created all of that wasn't with us, the way that he was. Robert was the mastermind behind it with the cameras and the technology. But the story of Sin City, the pieces that he did with the first one were all made by Frank, and it was all in Frank's mind. And one of the most incredible, and I'm going to stand up because this is really important. I want you guys to listen to me. Incredible moments, which is when it validated everything Robert said, is when I saw the production designing team come in and sit with Frank, and it was one frame of that comic book, and it's one of a woman sitting by a dumpster, and she's one of the women, that's a prostitute in the story, and she's sitting there, and they say, what is she doing? What is around her? Because we want to be able to recreate it. This man, it was like a master class in how he came about with that frame, that almost every frame in that comic book was that deep in his mind. And he went, she's sitting there because this happened in her life and da-da-da-da-da. So she's really, really like almost is so drunk that she has alcohol poisoning. And she's sitting there with a Bible next to her. You couldn't tell it was a Bible, but it was a Bible. And then it was this, and then it was that. And he's talking about all the elements that are in this frame. And I was like, see, that's why we had to fight for this man to be the co-director of this film, and Robert had to quit the DGA. And by the way, just so that you'll know, guess who else doesn't belong to the DGA? George Lucas. He said, I don't think so. I'm staying in San Francisco. Y'all do you, I do me. Okay? So, a lot of times they're, mind you, is it great to be part of the DGA? Yes. Is it good to be part of unions? Yes. Okay, fine. But not when they're trying to literally, hamstring you to something that is the truth. The co-director of that film had to be Frank Miller. So, FYI. Okay, guys? So, I want to make sure you know that. Charles Ramírez Berg. Oh, my God. And by the way, not just Robert, but so many students. That man has inspired. You have no idea. Lance Larson, who directed Deadland, it was one of the best moments in my life because he would always talk about Charles Ramírez Berg and how much he had inspired him, that it was his favorite professor. And Lance is the one that wrote and directed and edited Deadland. So when we were showing Deadland, and Charles does this all the time, he comes with his cameras to the Austin Film Society and takes tons of pictures. Tons and tons of pictures of whatever filmmaker is there showing their film or whatever. And that's such a sweet thing to do too. But Lance had no idea that was Charles. Charles has gotten a lot older. It's been years since Lance was in school in the 90s. And so he's taking pictures of him. And so a question was, who inspired you? And literally, he goes, my favorite professor at UT was Charles Ramírez Berg. He didn't know Charles was taking pictures of us. I had told Charles about it, so he showed up. And I go, Lance, the one taking pictures is Charles Ramírez Berg. Oh, my God. Tears, because he's that important. When he comes here, feel the blessing, because he's an amazing man that has shown us Latinos how to truly be the best that we can be, helping us understand our roots in film and how to make something bigger. So go back to the story with Robert and Charles Ramírez Berg. When Robert was at UT Austin is not the film school which is now #1 in the country, by the way, and for public school, for a public university. And I have to say that it truly has become that. I can attest that is a true statement. And it has to do with what including Charles, what they've done to uplift it and the way that they've brought it about. Charles is a PhD in history and of film and in the actual what happens behind the scenes and in front of the scenes and all of those things. And he's written a lot about Latinos, but he's also a specialist in film theory and things like that. And his classes are very empowering and very powerful. So here's Robert, and he had taken a class from Charles and was very inspired, but he was also going to go do mariachi after his first year in film school. Actually, it was first, because he started, it was a year, he was in the third semester of film. Charles Ramírez Berg caught up with him and said, "Hey, Robert, what's going on? How's it going?" Because his short bedhead had already won a bunch of stuff, and he took the second semester of film production. And after he was able to get into the film school, which they were like, your grades are not good enough, whatever that means. Grades don't make a movie. So he... the professors at that time, they were wonderful professors, don't get me wrong, but they didn't have the caliber and the experience that the professors of today, the professors of practice at UT are extremely experienced, even in Hollywood. They've made movies, they've actually been editors, they've actually won awards, so they've now created this whole career of having professors of practice, which is very important. It's real filmmakers that have, in different areas. So that's what has brought up the school at UT, to a level that is way higher, because they've been able to attract all kinds of amazing filmmakers to come and teach. But at that point, not so much. And it's, it is what it is. It was the way the university is a public university like UTEP. And I worked for the executive vice president and provost, a lot of rules, a lot of hamstrung rules. So what happened is, some of the other professors were literally, Robert, because when he said, I'm going to go make this movie, El Mariachi, blah, blah, blah. Oh, Robert, everybody's going to hate you. No, you're going to do a feature in 2 weeks. Are you crazy? Blah, 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 la, 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 and all this stuff. And Robert's like, well, I made Bedhead in a weekend. I can certainly make it in, 2 weeks. And that's all he was getting the camera borrowed from some guys that had been able to borrow that camera. And they were so generous to give 2 weeks up of that camera to him, and that's what I'm talking about, people that were like, yeah, sure, you can take it. And then it's like, we need it back. And and Robert, okay, I'm almost done. And then brought it back. But Charles Ramírez Berg, then again, he runs into him in the hallway. Already Robert had won some awards, and he's like, so what are you doing this summer? And I was like, well, I'm going to make this movie in Acuña, blah, blah, blah. And, I've made other little shorts before. And it's a feature. I made my first feature in Spanish. And Charles, he tells a story, so cute, because he's sitting there going, and I'm so glad I didn't tell him, are you crazy? But I was thinking it. I was like, oh, wow, that's a tall order for 2 weeks and on film. And wow, okay. But he didn't say it. He was like, Robert, I know you can do it. And I'm sure you're going to make us all proud and, blah, blah, blah. But he's so open. That's what I love about Charles Ramírez Berg. He's so open and honest that he's like, but I was thinking another thing. I was like, whew, okay. And then, lo and behold, what a surprise. It really was that he did it. He went and did it, made it happen. And it was for the Mexican video market, straight to video market. It wasn't for Columbia Pictures. He didn't make it for Columbia Pictures. That was going to be later. He was going to make a couple more like that and then make his American film, And also, if you think about it, Robert for a minute really was concerned because Slacker had gone to Sundance 2 years before we did. So it's been about, Slacker was just starting to get, and he was like, why didn't I do something like that? He wasn't jealous of Rick Linklater. We all met each other and we're friends, but it was like, why am I doing a movie in Spanish? He was even a little questioning, a little bit, But it's like, no, this is what I'm going to do because I'm going to sell it. And then I don't have the money to go make another movie. If I don't make this one for $7,000, I have the money for that. So that's how that happened. But Charles Ramírez Berg has inspired so many students. And to have professors that inspire you are so important. So, and you look like somebody that inspires them too. So thank you for the questions.
Let me get in one more question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go on.
I'll let. Sorry, they went all the way around.
Hi, thank you for being here again. I'm Alan, and my question for you is, as a filmmaker and a producer, I feel like there's this age-old tension between creative control and commercial or executive control. So in your experience, I was just wondering, how have you dealt with that? Or how can us students prepare for that once we start branching out from independent filmmaking to maybe even commercial filmmaking?
Well, I see it all the time where something is making money, like right now it's horror movies, and they think that they just can throw anything at the screen and it's gonna be good because it's a bunch of blood and all that stuff. And that's not true either. Some of the ones that have been getting a lot of play are really amazingly written and executed horror movies, from what I hear. I won't see weapons. My daughter was like, "Mom, don't go see it. I swear." My mom was almost on the verge of tears. I was going to start crying. I was so scared. I was like, okay, I'm not going. Sorry. You guys I hope you saw it. But anyway, so commercially, it's good for you to have, it's both sides of the coin. It really, truly is. But the first part of it is writing a great story that then it can be great even if it's just a short story in a book or in a movie or it has to be a great, well-written story, well thought out. But you need to know the genre that you are writing in, if there's a genre. Like if it's a romantic comedy, understand what makes a romantic comedy work, right? Or what makes a horror movie really work. And why, by the way, there's a book that is kind of true. When I read it, I was like, oh my God, they're so right. There's 20 basic plots in movies. It's just what you add to it, what you bring to it, what uniqueness you have that is putting that story, that one of 20, or a mixture of a couple of those, that is your movie, Fish out of water story, and that is very true. But it is what you bring, and that's the uniqueness that you give it. It's your way to be able to enhance, including in documentaries. I mean, I testament to Andrew Gonzalez that he spent, and even, I know he risked his life because he was getting on planes during the pandemic, guys, to go be with these young men that were veterans and friends of the young men that the film is about and the story is about, J.B. Villarreal, to the point that one of them didn't want to speak at all, And Andrew, with his ability to be there and just be present with him and just be there, present, being willing to be present, ended up where this young man not only speaks, but all the participants in the film that are veterans, you can't even tell the camera is there. They're so open and honest about their feelings and so speak real truth, real ground truth, which makes this documentary very special. So again, you have a story, really look at it. Yes, there is a commercial. Look at the things that even smaller films, even independent films that have gotten traction, that have gotten in that genre or in that area. And it doesn't have to follow a certain structure, but there is certain things that are true about that particular genre. And then sometimes new genres are created that are mixed, and you can look, but you can always know film, watch film. If you want to make films, if you want to write TV, if you want to do plays, go see plays, go and immerse yourself, go to movie theaters and immerse yourself in a story. A lot of times I see movies twice. When I like what I see, I go see it twice because I'm like, whoa, that was really unique and different. I don't know if you guys saw Joyride. You see that movie, Joyride? It's a funny movie. It was so unique because it was Asian. It was Asian women. And my God, I laughed, I cried, and it was so amazing. I was like, I got to see it again because I got to really see what they did was so unique about their culture and brought in things that I would have never thought that are not their culture, but blended it in such a great manner, right? So go see movies twice. I'm about to go see, again, A Big, Bold, Beautiful Journey because it is so beautiful, guys. And it's by a Korean guy that directed it, and a different Korean guy wrote it. And it's a movie with Colin Farrell and Margot Robbie. And it is so simple, so beautiful in the romance, in the magic, in the magical realism that happens in the film. It is about healing. It is about childhood. It is about so many things that I have to go see it again, because the first time it just washed over me. The second time I dissected. So do that for yourselves and make sure that you know. But you always have, by the way, you want to sell the movie? But Robert studied very deeply those straight-to-video movies that he was going to sell to that company, $1 million movie. It was called For a Mariachi. He was like, I can make a movie 10 times better than they're making. I mean, it's just a camera in a corner and whatever's going on over there. I can certainly do better than that. But he studied them. He would rent them and watch them and say, okay, I can do something better and sell it to them and make some money to make my next one. And he was going to make 3 of them. So hope that helps.
All right, our last question from the president of DMPA over there, Angelica.
Woo!
Yeah, so my name is Angelica Gutierrez, and it's so nice to meet you, and thank you for taking the time to be here with us and sharing your story. And my question would be what advice would you give to younger filmmakers, especially during production? I know sometimes halfway through we're like, am I doing the right thing? This is gonna fall apart. What am I doing? So what's your advice?
Advice is filmmakers make films. Even if they're bad ones, get the bad ones out of the way. Robert always says that, and it's true. We have a lot of bad movies in us. Just get them out. Get them out. And how you get them out, it's by making some of them, and then you learn from that one. And then you go back and make another one. And then what you learn, you apply, And by the way, and know that it is a collective effort, and always see who really, truly is a collaborator among you, and there's plenty of you, to have several teams of filmmakers that get along, because it also has to do with personality and how you work together, and find your team, find your group, and help each other make a script better, and make sure you give credit where credit is due. Don't take all the credit, Robert does do all those things. That's why, or otherwise I'd be going, dude, no, seriously. But, I think that it is really important to keep making them, even if in the middle of it, because that's how it's sharpening your tools. You're sharpening your tools. You're learning as a group, and then even if you're part of another group, you're bringing your own tools that are sharp to that next group. Wherever you go from here to work with anybody else in any other department, in any other area. I mean, it's wonderful for me to watch, these student films at the end of the semester from Liliana's class alone, because in that class there's about 21 students, 21 to 25 students, and every one of them has to make a movie at the end of the semester. That is the assignment. It's not like you would do a group and one of them writes it. No, every one of them has to make a short film. And to see how that one was the one that edited or that did the grip and the electric, and then they share actors, and then the actor, you see him being also part of the team. I mean, it's fabulous. That's how you do it, and that's how you get better. And if that is your heart, that is what your heart tells you that you want to do, you do it. Even if you have to have, I've had to have jobs, The mariachi and all that stuff didn't happen because we both said, we're going to just make films and try to make some, money from there. No, I had the job. I had health insurance. I had things like that. But then I could, after hours, help with whatever. And the weekends, I had my weekends. I could help him with anything he needed. So I think it's really, don't lose heart, but do take the moment to breathe if you need to. Don't make one after another one either, Try to breathe. Try to see what you learn as a group, coalesce and see who is better at what, because also that's a very important thing. Who is really good at watching YouTube things and then be able to do it, because that's a thing. There are people that can read books and learn how to do something. There are people that can watch a video and learn how to fix all kinds of things or make makeup. And it's just so many things that are out there. You guys, it's a wealth. You did not have this back then. So anyway.
Okay, I think that's. I think some people want to take pictures with you.
Sure.
So again, I want to thank our guest today and our first DMPA.
One more thing I didn't say. I'm sorry. One more thing I didn't say. So one big question everybody asks me: You didn't ask it, but I know that it's in your minds. How do I raise money for my movie? Right? That's the hardest. It's always hard. No matter what, it's hard. Even if you're raising $1,000, you know, $500, whatever, right? But I'm a huge believer in that we are the originators of the intention that brings a manifestation when we want something. And if you guys are out there, which I see a lot of young people, okay, invest in yourselves, I tell kids. And invest in yourselves means you make your own coffee at home. You don't go to wherever, Starbucks, whatever coffee shop, and buy coffee. Grab those $5 to $10, which usually it is, guys, and put that away for your film fund. And you will start seeing the ripple of that in your life. Every day of my life, you can ask any of my kids because I want to be a good example for my children. I pack up a little cooler with my sodas, with a sandwich, with some fruit, and I have some little crackers and almonds. I probably have some in my purse. Because instead of getting bad food out there and spending money you don't need to spend, put it toward your movie. That's investing in you. You're investing in you. And I encourage you to do that for yourselves. $10 a day spent out there is $300 a month. $300 a month is how much a year in cash that you're putting out there. And some of you are charging on credit cards and you're getting interest on that coffee. So it's becoming a $100 coffee very quickly. Okay, guys? So I want to make sure you know that. Okay, guys? Take it to heart. Put that seed in your hearts, please. Because that's what I've been able to do with other students. Really think about because money doesn't grow on trees. Money doesn't just appear. Money happens because you have been a good steward of what you are given, even if it's $1. Okay? Good job, girls.